Structure of Unix. So actually Linux is a part of Unix, okay, and all the Linux flavor are came from the Unix operating system. And in the Unix operating system there is a two parts, kernel and shell. So kernel, core of the Unix OS, it interacts with the hardware. It is located into the memory. When the system is booted, its functions are managing the system resources, allocating time for users and processes, and managing process priorities and performing them. So our structure will be like hardware, kernel, shell, OS. OS we can say, or we can say user. So this would be the structure. User will interact with the shell will interact with the kernel will interact with the hardware and all. So the same thing is written over here, like kernel is a core of Unix operating system because everything is done by kernel only. Kernel is a heart. Okay, so it interacts with the hardware and it is loaded into the memory. And all the tasks like managing system resources, allocating time and users of process, and managing process priorities, like which process will happen first and after that, and performing them. Next is shell. It interacts with the kernel and the user. There's a layer between the user and kernel. It has the following features like interactive processing, background processing, input-output redirection, pipes, wildcard patterns, shell script, shell variables, and programming language construct. So these are the features we will talk about, like how these things will work and how we can use these things. So these are what we are going to learn in shell, like what is interactive processing, like what is background processing, how we can indirect the input output, what is pipes, what is wildcard patterns. So we will talk about these things. Okay, so types of shells: B shell, C shell, K shell, and bash. So B, C, and K are the older version of shells. Okay, it is using in the 70s, 90s, and 80s. Okay, so these are very older. Right now we are using bash shell. Bash is the advanced shell and like its latest one, so it has the upper hand on these shells. Okay, and provide more features than C and K. So that's why we are using bash shell. So if somebody asks you like what is the default shell and what is the current shell for your Linux, so you will say like it's a bash, and we are using bash shell, and we will learn more about this shell. But right now, like just understood like we are using bash shell. Okay, and there is some introduction part like when it's developed and who developed this shell and all these things. Okay. So the location will be C shell, like bin C shell. It's a bin KSH, and for the bash location will be /bin/shell.